Kia ora. Hey, it's Mona here from the Humans Connecting team. Our podcast is all about soothing, supporting, challenging, and inspiring you to become a connected human. The content of our podcast is of a general nature, and consuming this content is not the same as seeking individual advice from a connection mentor, registered mental health professional, or coach. Conversations about human connection address loneliness. We destigmatize loneliness here at Humans Connecting. We do that by talking about loneliness openly. Loneliness conversations necessarily include a range of topics which at times may be difficult for us to talk about, to hear, and to sit with. If throughout our conversation this is true for you, we encourage you to please contact a mental health hotline. The link in the episode description can help you find some immediate support for many places you may be in the world. Our advice to you is this: meet yourself where you are and how you are right now. If you don't feel up to it, we'll be right here ready to be by your side when you're ready. We're glad you're here. Let's jump in.
So we're halfway through the season, and it's now time for my favorite episode of each season, because this is the episode where you get to meet one of the Humans Connecting team. So today you're going to be spending some time with the person who's known me since we were both 16 years old at school, and then we went through university together. That same person is also charting us through the mysterious waters of investing capital in social enterprises. And you're also going to be spending the time with the same person whose story is uniquely his own. But I know that his story will resonate with you too. Today, you're going to be spending some time with Jonathon Lawless. Hello, it's Phil. Welcome to the Humans Connecting podcast. Again, welcome to this episode of the Humans Connecting podcast. I'm Phil McAuliffe, speaker, author, and connection mentor. I'm the founder of Humans Connecting, and I am your host. At Humans Connecting, we destigmatize loneliness and help you improve your social health and the quality of the connection that you feel in your life. Once you've decided that it's time for a change, whether that's been because you've been experiencing loneliness or you're learning about the importance of being and remaining socially healthy for your well-being, we at Humans Connecting are here for you, no matter what you do for work, no matter how you identify as a human or where you are in the world. All the ways that we support you, your workplaces and communities are at humansconnecting.org. I know that there's value in friendships. And I hope that there are people in your life who have been part of your life for as long as Jonathon has been part of mine. We'll get into the story of how we met in more detail in just a few minutes, but there's something so special about having someone who knew you when you were younger and someone for whom one of those quick exchanges of glances conveys so much information, like years worth of experiences, wisdom, and insight. Jonathon and I drifted apart after university, but the work at Humans Connecting reconnected us. Part of the reason why my friendship with Jonathon is so important is that he knew me, who I was back then, and he knows me now. And we've allowed each other to grow and evolve. And this kind of relationship is rare in my life. I'm not close with my immediate and extended family, and my life living around the world for much of the past 20 years means that I have lots of friends all around the world, but very few of whom I actually see. And for that, Jono is so very special to me. So, who is Jonathon Lawless? Jonathon founded Vivendus Capital Partners in 2021, investing in star businesses globally. With over 20 years of experience, he's previously worked at Colonial First State in Melbourne and Sydney, Penta Investment Advisors in Hong Kong, and most recently Platinum Asset Management in Sydney. Jono's expertise includes asset management, investment analysis, due diligence, risk management, and fundraising. He's also a crisis support worker with Lifeline Australia. He's married and is a doting father of three and still lives in Sydney. So, in this conversation, you'll hear Jono's story from hustling to try to fit in school and at work to feeling like he now truly belongs. You'll also learn about the decisions that he took where he invested in himself and the life that he wanted to lead. And you'll also, as always, get more great advice and support that encourages you to take the step towards getting the connection that you need and absolutely deserve. It's time for you to meet my friend, our investment manager, the man, the myth, the legend, Jonathon Lawless. I'll see you on the other side of the conversation. Jonathon Lawless, welcome to, well, your Humans Connecting podcast.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
So, this is the first time you've been on a podcast.
It is indeed, yes.
How do you feel?
I'm not too sure. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I really I love the medium, but yeah, I've got no idea. I have to say I'm a little apprehensive and nervous, but let's see.
Yeah, good, good. Well, that's okay. That's okay. We are here to have a good chat and to help support the listener and the viewer who's pressed play as they go about improving the quality of the connection in
Mm,
their life.
yep.
And in that way, like you are like the listener and the viewer. You just have a little bit of a boost up because of what you do and how you do it here at Humans Connecting. We're going to get into that. But I think the insights that you will share
Mm,
will offer a unique perspective that's different to the experts that we have on previous episodes and upcoming episodes. And this is why, as I said, viewer and listener in the introduction, this is why these episodes where we get to meet the team are some of my favorite episodes
mm,
because they're real. And with someone who is maybe just a few steps, if this is linear, if life is linear, just a few steps ahead of you in terms of appreciating and learning about human connection. So, and you can't get this wrong. You can't get this wrong. So all good. Now, I did, I think for the first time, call you Jonathan.
mm,
And so already in the intro, I think I referred to you as Jonathan about three times and then the
mm,
rest is Jono.
yep.
Um, and so I will just be calling you Jono. And
Totally fine.
yeah.
It's really
um,
only my mum that says Jonathan, so that's quite okay.
when you're in trouble.
Yeah,
So I will say that, can I just get points for introducing you using,
thank you.
the formal way, but let's I think it just puts us all at ease if it's Jono.
Easy.
But Jono, I read your bio, and would you care to introduce yourself and what
Mm,
you do here at Humans Connecting?
yeah. Well, I'll try to do the abridged version. But going back, I grew up on a small farm in uh, northeastern Victoria, a place called Yarrawonga, um, not too far from where you were born, Phil. And I was fortunate enough to finish the last 2 years of school at a boarding school near Melbourne, and that is where, in fact, I met Phil, which was the beginning of a long friendship. I went to uni in Melbourne and then started working for a company called Colonial Mutual uh, uh, which was an insurance, banking, funds management group. I moved to Sydney in 1999 after only just starting there for a year or so. Got to Sydney, the Commonwealth Bank bought Colonial, so it became part of that group. It was rebranded Colonial First State, and it was a very fortunate time to be part of the uh, finance slash investment management industry in Australia because of the growth at that time. So I would say for a kid from the country, uh, it was a couple of moments that were quite fortunate that it helped to push my at least career along. Um, the latter part of working with Colonial, so I was there for several years, and in the last few years I was there, I was fortunate enough to have a job that focused on visiting hedge funds around the world, and to be honest, it was probably the first time I'd really um, traveled a lot and been able to see a lot of things, and that really opened my eyes. And it was a privilege to meet a lot of really interesting investors and hear their story, hear their processes. And I think it was during that phase that I really honed in on probably what I'm good at, which is listening to people and seeing patterns and trying to understand how things fit together. So that journey was very interesting. That put me in contact with a gentleman that was investing in Asia at the time. This is back in 2004, 5, and we'd invested with him, and I got to know he and what he was doing, and ultimately I ended up asking him if I could join his group and help with what they were doing. And that gradually came together, and I moved to Hong Kong in 2006 to start working with him, and that was the start of another extraordinary journey. And what could have been 3 months in Hong Kong turned into 12 years, and I learned a lot through that period. We had a lot of ups and downs, and um, uh, that got me through. I suppose a lot of the investing apprenticeship, if you like, and I was able to um, learn a lot around meeting companies and understanding patterns of what are interesting businesses, etc. In that time as well, probably the more important part is I'd met my now wife in Sydney, and she decided to move to Hong Kong also, which was fortunate. And and without really any guarantees. And she had a go at it, and ultimately stayed in Hong Kong. And we had 3 children during that 12-year period there. And then decided in 2018 to move back to Sydney with the kids, and started back here. And then I worked for a group for a little while in Sydney in investment management as well. Realized that that wasn't my thing, and I really needed to try and do it on my own, and break away from being within bigger groups. And so in the last 2 years, I've been um, doing my own thing, investing um, capital. I won't get into the minor details uh, of that, but yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the very quick story. That's more of a career story, though, Phil. That's not really much about anything.
It tells a story. It tells a
Mm,
story, and in a really similar way to you, Jono. Um, I also, can answer that question in that, well, between this date and this
mm.
date, I worked here and did that and stuff, because that's kind of how we measure life.
Our
And
narrative, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And spent this amount of time in this job in this place, and then, moved and things. And they're
Mm,
kind of like the headlines of life. And one of the things though, and this, Jono, and me having having lived and worked in diplomacy for while during my public service career, in a similar way, one of the things that is a constant presence that develops over time when we are expats in your sense or diplomats in mine
Mm,
is actually loneliness
mm,
and disconnection. And listener or viewer, you might be sort of like pushing yourself back from the table. You might be ripping the headphones off. You might be reaching for the remote to turn down the volume or skip or whatever it is you're going to be doing in outrage, going, how is it, you privileged bastards, you could actually say that this is, lonely and stuff. And I'll simply say that however glamorous life looks,
mm.
whatever the headlines, whether or not you're flying to Hong Kong in Cathay Pacific at the pointy end
Mm,
or in economy or,
mhm.
like if you've got a lovely three-bedroom apartment in mid-levels or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, living the expat life, it is still life.
Yeah, and I think one thing I notice, Phil, is we lead with our narrative. Everyone wants to have a narrative or a story, and I think for a lot of us, you know you hide behind that, and there's a lot within that period of this is my life that we haven't talked about or haven't talked about yet that are much more important than 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 where I went from um, the bush to finding work. Learning about yourself and then realizing when you are on um, that journey where you think that this is what you should be doing, you can be very much in a scenario where it's isolating and lonely because you're trying to convince yourself that is the right thing to be doing or that you should be doing. And I agree with you. It can be almost a big facade that you tell your story um, and lead with all of well, this is where I work, this is where I live, and blah blah blah. It's not really the important things.
Saying that, and I'm keen to go there because that's where the good stuff is.
Mm,
Behind the headlines, behind the facade, because I
mm,
feel so many of us, you, me, listener, viewer, are really good at building and maintaining the facades. Kind of
mm,
like, the set on a movie shoot.
for sure.
And don't look behind it because there's nothing there. Um, and it takes energy to build and maintain the facade.
Mm,
Um, and because and hoping that nobody looks behind it, and also not wanting to look behind it ourselves, but we know that it's a facade. Can you share with us how you like what was behind the facade?
mm, for sure. Yeah,
Like,
well, it goes all the way back to really, Phil, when you and I met at school, and I knew, yeah, I was just trying to fit in and trying really hard to fit in, and you've talked about it. Um, it's almost survival in a way, and then when we got down to Melbourne together, I was also just trying to fit in, but I knew pretty early on that I wasn't someone that just accepted um, the way things are just because that's the way things are, and that something felt awkward about in just conforming and doing what other people were telling you to do, or what you thought other people were telling you to do. So I did go through quite a period of, I really knew nothing. And I remember quite clearly arriving in Sydney and feeling very much different and on my own and isolated. And that's probably the first time I really, didn't have a a, a network around me that was immediate, and it was the first time where I felt as though, okay, well, you're either sink or swim here, and started probably the journey of actually maturing, and that was really in my early 20s, and it's taken a long time. I mean, this is you know, 20 something years later.
Let's not say that.
Yeah,
That's
still really getting to know who I am and being at peace with who I am, and just letting that that thing be is certainly a journey, and I think so much more important than as I've learned the other part of the journey, which is um, let's say chasing what you think are um, what you think are the measurable things in a career context, although even material context are far less important than actually um, truly understanding the journey that you're on, and starting to, or how do you embrace that? So a long way of saying, Phil, I think that understanding that it was a facade was quite clear to me early on, but it took a long time of self-development. And yeah, there was a period where I was, and I think you've spoken about this for yourself, totally caught up um, in the rat race, and thinking that was the ultimate goal. And there are segments along that path that were quite isolating.
be the biggest rat in the race. Yeah.
Well, what's this? Try to I can't think of the analogy, but in the sandpit, he who has the most toys,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But really, it's nothing like that at all.
Listener and viewer, feel that you understand what Jono is saying there innately. And you may have been in a similar way. You might have a similar origin story to Jono. You may not have grown up on a farm near Yarrawonga. Um, on what I'll just say is not the good side of the border. Everyone, knows that to be born on the northern side of the river is far better. But yeah, Jono and I grew up very close, probably about 120 k's apart.
Mm,
Um, and but yeah, so everyone like, there's a good side of the river and then there's the other side of the river.
yeah.
Jono was on the other side of the river. But there's so many nuggets here that I feel, while the nouns and the context might be a bit different in Jono's life, the key points are really important and are gonna and are echoing within you. And I want to like ring the bell so it echoes just a little bit more with you, viewer and listener. Specifically, high school, 16, and final 2 years of high school at a boarding school. And that's a unique social construct. If
Indeed.
if you've not been to boarding school, listener and viewer, in Victoria in the early 90s,
Don't do it.
I got educated great. But throw away any kind of notion of Harry Potter, please. Like,
Mm,
this, more like structure and order.
mm,
Um, but fitting in.
mm,
Then university, fitting in.
mm,
And this is so common. This is so common
mhm,
because fitting in is how we get through our teens.
mm. Think so.
and how we get through our like and it's a confusing time. It's not good to be different. So we
Mhm.
learn to hide and edit and deny ourselves things, and we don't do things, and we don't say that we like this anymore, but we like this band, but really our favorite music is that, and we hide it and we deny it, all trying to fit in,
Mm.
right? And then university and stuff, and then that technique that we've learned, perhaps even had quite a few wins, we do fit in, and we continue with that modus operandi, that MO of trying to fit in.
Mm.
And so we like, it gets us through school, gets us through university if we've gone to like to higher education. It then gets us in the workplace, and in a workplace perhaps as high paced as finance and insurance, or any other workplace, like hustling, showing that you're made of the right stuff, that you're worthy of opportunities, the promotions, the um bonuses, all of these kind of things. And you hustle, hustle to make it look like that you are made of the right stuff. And it
Mm.
works. It
Mm.
works until it doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there is a point, and I'm curious to see if this when this was for you, Jono. There is a point where it goes back to something that I just said before. It takes energy to fit in, and we
Mm.
never quite nail it. We
Mm.
might fit in for a little while. We might be, the golden child of our workplace for a little while, but then the rules change, something changes, and we've got to like, flex and adapt and do all of the things to fit in. And it is exhausting to fit in.
Mm.
We can get to a point, and I feel this is really important because listener and viewer, you are at that point. You don't want to be at that point, or you have been at that point and you're like going, oh my God, yes, Phil. Like, yes, this is the point. And the point is where you realize that fitting in is not the only way that you get to navigate through life, because
Mm.
it no longer works because you're exhausted.
Yeah, no, you're right. Um, yeah, I think, for me, and I guess I'll work out how much detail to go in as we go. Um,
You're comfortable as you're
yeah,
comfortable.
yeah. But I really felt like, okay, this is, you know, th I think I had a degree of imposter syndrome when I arrived in the finance industry. Didn't really have the what I felt, as I felt others around me were much more intellectually gifted. Uh, there was definitely insecurity, and that meant I just went harder and harder um, to to make myself of value. And when I arrived in Hong Kong in particular, and started working with um, who was a wonderful mentor through that period, but it was an extreme environment, and I really went for it, and I know that that caused some enormous problems, not just um, the degree of cortisol and health issues that were resultant from that, but I, to be frank, failing, or not being um, a not being a good partner, not being a good father. When depends how you describe or define good, but I was certainly failing in many aspects of what I would have considered my standard for
Yeah.
um, being uh, just living life as I would like to live it. And the culprit was this constant allure of you need to keep pushing, you need to keep trying, because it will be better on the other side once you get there. And And it wasn't probably until 2016 when that really started to take a toll. And I had a really nice GP in Hong Kong who was a lovely guy, an Australian, Singaporean, Chinese gentleman, and he was, very realistic and pragmatic, and he said to me a couple of times, this is your choice. You can keep on pushing, but you're burning it really hard at both ends, the candle at both ends. And I've seen this many times before, and I love it when you talk to practitioners, whatever they do, where they've seen a lot of just a lot of case studies and a lot of people, and they can see patterns, and I think that's one of the most important things in medicine. And he just pointed out the obvious, and I pretty much ignored it and kept on going. And then really fell into a crater in 2017, and that was when Lou, my wife, quite rightly pointed out, okay, this is enough is enough. You need to, not in a forceful way, in a very gentle way. You need to have a good hard look at what's going on. And there was, whether it was substance, alcohol, all sorts of stuff that was not helpful and not healthy, both mentally and physically, was all occurring at once. And the degree of, I felt like, well, I'm in this great job that I've got to just make sure I keep nailing and whatever it takes. And so that all sort of started to crumble a bit, and I took 2 weeks off and went to did the research of to find a retreat or a sort of a detox place in I think detox is a strong word, a retreat in Thailand and in Phuket, and took myself off there, and that was really the beginning. I did have a good counselor in Hong Kong who I'd started. She was really started to crack open this journey of, okay, well, who really are you, and who do you want to be? And so when I went to this retreat, it was a really strong eye opener, where suddenly I arrived. I think probably the first time I'd felt really vulnerable. But the beautiful part of it was that there were, I think, probably 15 or 20 other people there who were similarly um, vulnerable, and bringing their brokenness to this place, whether it was with weight or substance abuse or just generally lost. And it was an interesting retreat. Had components of it that were a little woo-woo, but it was very much focused on physical fitness, combined with mindfulness, whether it was meditation or yoga. And I'd never done yoga in my life until then, and that really opened my eyes. That those sort of 10 days or 2 weeks, I think it was, where where I could where I had the opportunity to really turn down the volume and just sit with, okay, what's going on. And there was a couple of, I think, moments in that period, during that time, where I realized, okay, I'm not who I want to be, and both physically and from a mindset point of view, and that really kicked off okay, what has to change. And it certainly wasn't just diet and exercise. And I think a lot of people, um, you know, there's they're looking for, okay, I need the silver bullet that's going to fix this problem right now. And I thought exactly the same thing. This is the silver bullet. I found it. I can start learn how to meditate. I'll start doing Bikram yoga, and life is going to suddenly be bliss. And then I started burying myself in self-help books, of all different description. Some were fantastic, and in fact, a friend at the time gave me one book, which was just out of, it was, I guess it was just very generous of him, and it was a Viktor Frankl book,
Mm,
Meaning of
Man's
Love.
Search for Meaning.
That's right. Yeah. And that and a couple of others. And it just started this process of, okay, but I was still looking for the quick fix, and really grasping for what do I need to do. And it really wasn't a quick fix thing. It was then me, okay, just slowly breaking down, getting physical fitness back under control. But the mental journey was the big one. And that's where I really had to, I suppose, face the vulnerability and start to talk to people. And I had this counselor in Hong Kong, psychologist who was really special because she'd had quite a lot of life experience prior to choosing that as her vocation, and so she'd seen these patterns and was just gentle with me, and and we realized in the process of talking, or we workshopped that continuing down the path of working at that pace, or trying, or what was I actually trying to achieve. Getting to the bottom of that was a big turning point, and one thing led to another, and that got to a lot of conversations with my wife and partner, and realizing that, yeah, I needed to make changes. And so, long answer, Phil, but I think it was there was a moment where everything just really um, really, and I've left out a lot of details, but we really hit a brick wall, and I'm kind of I'm grateful that a lot more didn't go wrong in that period, to be honest. And then I'll continue to. That was the start of the coming back to Australia, and then from there a whole lot of other things have happened that I think are that have helped me understand that the facade is not necessary.
Yeah. Jono, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Bravery and courage are two words that get thrown around willy-nilly. But viewer, listener, we've just witnessed some absolute courage. And it is
Thank you.
always a privilege to see it. And Jono, I simply want to say something right now. Vulnerability always feels horrible.
Mm,
Being vulnerable, like everyone's like, oh, you got to be vulnerable to connect. And it feels horrible. And right now, if there is any kind of narrative in your mind that is saying, oh, this is terrible, I shouldn't be saying this, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, know that me
mm,
and know that the viewer and the listener are just seeing and hearing nothing but a very courageous man.
mm. Yeah, well, thank you. But everyone has their journey and their own things that they wrestle with. I think one thing that became quite clear to me is that a life without strong anchors in it is something that that is hard. It really it prevents you from, or makes it a lot harder to be just present. And so I was very determined. This is really the last 5 years where I've been determined to try to find um, um, different areas of purpose and focuses from the what was a prior to that moment very much a one-track direction.
Yeah. Strong anchors sound awfully similar to connections.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely, Phil. I think you one can find themselves in a world where or particularly in finance or corporate world, most businesses, I think you can find yourself in an environment where a lot of people are doing exactly what just suits them and what's going to be best for them and to progress them. And those sorts of environments can feel like you're part of something, but really um, they're a little hollow in a lot of respects because you're not truly um, connected with those people or whatever that thing is or the business, or it seems like it's um, huge and the center of gravity. Um, but yes, for me, I think the transformative moment was understanding that um, who actually am I, and that I'm not defined by some nice sounding um, this is what I do for a job or blah blah blah. So yes, I think the anchors part is very much a realization for me that connection and purpose are really the fundamental things that I had never addressed properly. Um,
It feels to me it's connection with purpose.
hmm, true, and you know, I went down this road of okay, I'm going to do something that changes or helps people or does something enormously purposeful, and that was again trying to find a silver bullet, a one shot.
Mhm.
This is going to be great, and that certainly doesn't exist. And I met with quite a few people that had that had changed direction in their journey. And some of those people were very generous with helping me to understand that, well, really all that you need to do is just do something, not try and work it all out, just do something. And that got me started on the process of training for and becoming a volunteer with Lifeline. And that was a big step forward um, for my own development.
I'm I'm really keen to explore that, but before we kind of move into, what came after, like, first of all,
Mm,
so much of your story is parallel to mine.
mm,
So, we, went to uni together, we lived at the same college and things. And, after uni, um, I moved to Canberra, you moved to Sydney, and we kind of, didn't have like our paths didn't really cross. And this is a
yeah.
time before social media and things. But one of the like in since reconnecting with you a few years ago and finding out that you were in Hong Kong while I was in Vietnam and
Yeah.
holidaying in Hong Kong and
Yeah.
living in Seoul and going to Hong Kong or through Hong Kong to go to conferences or
Yeah.
or whatever. And because like there's just a few weeks between our birthdays,
Yeah.
um, like at that time, 2016, 2017, when your old ways of your old MO
Mm,
ceased to stop working in the way that it had
hmm.
um, for you, pretty much exactly at the same time as me,
Yeah.
as well. So and what you're describing there, I think we can euphemistically say, like, it's a midlife crisis. And a
Mm,
midlife crisis, listener and viewer, not having any of that stuff about a crisis, it's a midlife opportunity. And one of the things about midlife is it's one of the only times in life that we can actually um, change. Let me explain that. First of all, we finish school, we finish our education, whether it's secondary, tertiary education, and we're full of ideas about what to do with our life. Maybe full of ideas, but we've got some knowledge, but we've got no experience. And we kind of take steps out into the world with some knowledge and not a whole lot of experience. And then at the other end of life, we have, the end of life, where we've got nothing but we've got all the knowledge that we're going to get, and we've got all the experience that we're going to get, but we've got no time to do anything about it. Time has run out.
Mm.
And the pain, the pain of regret,
Mm.
at that time of life, at the end of life, is horrible.
Mm.
Midlife is the sweet spot. And yep, it feels terrible. It feels like a crumbling. It feels like we're falling apart. Johnny, you said the word broken.
Mm.
All of these people at this retreat in Phuket were, coming along with their brokenness.
Mm.
I want to invite you, Jono, but also listener and viewer, substitute brokenness with humanity.
Yeah.
These are humans operating in a system that doesn't care about humans.
Mm.
And this is almost the inevitable um the inevitable outcome of it. The system breaks. Not we are broken. The system breaks us, but somehow we contort it that we're somehow weak. We're somehow not able to hack it. We're not resilient. We're not doing all of these things, and at a perfectly reasonable expected time of life where we are sort of going, well, who am I? We're asking the big questions. Finally,
Mm.
in that sweet spot where we've got skills, we've got knowledge, and we've got experience, and everything going well, we have time to do something about it. If you are at that point right now, listener, viewer, what a gift you have. And you have a choice with what you do with that gift. Do you sit there and even though it's a pretty terribly, like it's a gift that's pretty badly wrapped and you don't want it, you might be asking for the receipt so you can take it back and exchange it for something and, have a real midlife crisis where you get a sports car or whatever.
Mm.
Um, have an affair or a sports car or whatever it is that seems a bit more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might be wanting to regift it. Like, I'm just not going to open it and I'm going to save it for someone else and they can deal with it. Um, you will continue to be stuck until you do the brave and courageous thing. There are those words again of sitting there and opening it up. And Jono, you don't know this, but just the sequence of recording this and all that kind of stuff. But this is episode 5 of the third season. Episode 4 of the third season is with Mike Campbell, and we talked about creating connected men.
Mm.
And Mike had this great line. So, listener, viewer, it's in the previous episode as you're hearing and watching this now. Had a great line. It was like, if we take the step, and it's a terribly scary step of opening that gift that life is giving us that we don't want. If we take that step, the way forward then opens up. And Jono, as you were saying that, telling your story, again, thank you. I'm just so like full of love and gratitude for you sharing that story. Thank you. But there's a couple of points in there that kind of reinforce what I'm saying.
Mm.
You went to the GP, and listener, viewer, if you don't know what a GP, general practitioner, like you might in the US or anywhere else in the world call them an MD.
Mm.
But like, the person you go to when, you need a doctor certificate and you've got a like any like sore throat or whatever it is, like, but your first point of call, your main medical provider. So you went to your GP and your GP's like, I've seen this song before. I've seen this movie before. I've heard this song. I've seen this movie before. I know how this movie ends.
Mm.
You have a choice now. Do you write a script for another part of life, for another act in life, or do you continue down this plot line,
Mm.
right? And that the way forward presented to you after you've like, actually, I need to go to the GP. I need some
Mm.
help.
Mm.
When Lou kindly and lovingly said, this isn't sustainable. This has got to change. What do we need to do?
Yeah.
And, love you as she does. That step is you can only take that step. You can only make that decision. But you did.
Mm.
You went to the GP. The GP's like, this is how this movie ends. Your choice now. You also then went to you sought the support of a therapist,
Yeah.
of a psychologist, who also showed the next few steps, like helped you get to the bottom of what was really there by asking some big questions. Who are you and what do you want in your life? And is this the way? Is your current path the way for you to get there?
Mm.
Listener and viewer, really importantly, there is the hero's journey here. And if you're not familiar with the hero's journey, go and Google it. But basically, every movie franchise, every adventure story, whatever it is the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is in 12 parts. And it's just a regular person minding their own business, and a circumstance happens and they're called to action. Do they accept it or do they not? And they don't want to. They're doing everything that they can to not do it. Think Harry Potter, think the Lord of the Rings movies, think Indiana Jones, think Star Wars, big one. Luke Skywalker did not want to be the hero,
Mm.
but the way forward presented itself through Yoda, through the people that he met that he hadn't known after he'd taken the step. It works. It like Homer's Odyssey, like it goes all the way back into antiquity. And it keeps on coming up and up and up and up and up. Jono, you are on your hero's journey. I've been on my hero's journey, and listener and viewer, you are on your hero's journey. We are all the heroes of our lives. And are you accepting the invitation as Jono did? Unwillingly, didn't want it,
Mm.
and then took a step.
Yeah, and I always say to people, feel be gentle with yourself as well, because you know we're looking for, okay, I really want to change things. There's something not right. Um, I've used the word silver bullet or phrase silver bullet. And then, those big questions like, then it would come up whenever I was talking to sort of mentor type people. They'd be like, oh, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or who do what? And they're just too big a questions. And it's impossible to have the answer. And I kind of go back to, I'm still very much on a journey. And I always go back to, it's just one little step at a time. It's just one thing that um, that you do a little bit differently, and then that provides a catalyst for something else becomes a little bit easier to do. And trying to do it all in one go, and I did several times try to do everything in one go. I was running around, exercise, pretending I couldn't even meditate, trying to meditate, um, breath work, everything all at once. This is all going to be amazing. Um, and I'm going to arrive there. And I think what I realized is the big thing is there is not there. It's just chipping away at the little things you can and allowing yourself to just be gentle on you, to actually to be at ease with yourself, rather than whipping yourself. I need to be better. I need to do this. I need to. You just can't crack it all in one go. And so I always say, Phil, at that beginning of that little journey, whatever it is just be easy on yourself, and just one little step at a time.
Yeah.
And then who knows what can happen. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what happens. It's as long as is you're moving in the direction you feel is good for you, to become the best version of you. It's for no one else to judge, really. It's just your first steps, and going off on a tangent.
No, thank you for going there, because yeah, it is it is tempting, particularly when we're driven, when we're high achieving, driven people, who, we have gotten to our our place in life because, we've been driven. And we've driven ourselves really hard. We do also get to learn other ways of being within ourselves, and yelling, berating ourselves, hating ourselves. That's effective, but it stops being effective. And we get to learn other ways of being within ourselves, that's not full of hate and rage and loathing and not good enough and things. And Jono, you said something, and I really want to come back to it. Right. Like a good few minutes ago now, at the start of your share there, where you said that, at work you were, hustle, 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 showing that you're made of the right stuff. Like this is so common. This is so common, and this is a key part of my story too. But viewer and listener, what Jono was saying there was that he was trying to prove his value to others. I invite us all to entertain next time we're journaling, next time we're meditating, next time we're reflecting, next time we're staring into the middle distance while waiting for the traffic light to turn green. Entertain what life can be like now. If you didn't have to hustle to prove your value, but you were living from a place knowing that your value simply is. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to convince people at work. You don't have to convince your friends. You don't have to convince yourself that you have to be something in order to be worthy to have value to someone or something else. If we can operate from a place of acceptance and knowing that we are worthy just as we are, what could life look like based on that? Perhaps this short break can give you an opportunity to reflect on that as you listen to this short message.
Have you ever been with someone, perhaps it's been with your partner, or maybe while you're at work or out with a group of friends, and despite having people around you, you just feel disconnected? And this is an incredibly common experience, one that I've certainly had many times. And when these things happen, we often don't really know what to do about it. Or worse, we think there might be something wrong with us for having that experience in the first place. Hi, this is Pete from the Humans Connecting team. And if you've experienced what I'm talking about, then you might find our Connection Starter course really helpful. See, these feelings, they're all just expressions of loneliness. And before I did the course, I didn't even realise I was lonely. And I certainly didn't see these feelings as an invitation to discover how I could become more connected to myself, more connected to my people, and more connected to the things that I'm most passionate about in my life. Now, the course itself, it's made up of a series of self-led videos, a comprehensive workbook, and a handful of external resources, all lovingly led and supported by Phil and the team here at Humans Connecting. By the end of it, you'll have your very own personalized connection plan that is specifically tailored to you and your unique connection needs. Look, it's made a huge impact on my life. So if you're curious about improving the connections in yours, jump over to humansconnecting.org and under the products menu, click on the Connection Starter course because you are absolutely worthy of it.
Welcome back. Remember, your worthiness for love and belonging, your worthiness full stop, simply is. Jono, it feels to me that the investments that you had been making externally at work were great, but perhaps one of the best investments that you've made is in yourself.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it's so important that that each of us is able to be at ease with who we are, and it's a very easy thing to say. There's all sorts of conflicts, whether it's um, you know what type of there could be self-worth issues, image issues, all sorts of things. But just being able to crack open who you actually are. So for me, it was a process and has been a process of also wanting to understand the parts which make up who I am. And this gets kind of, without deviating, I think interesting. There's a guy called Richard Swartz who's written, his Internal Family Systems is his big thesis, and it's on, it's practiced by some therapists and psychologists, but it's trying to go back and understand the components of your upbringing and your childhood and the experiences that you had, and some of those may be traumatic, some may be not or maybe happy, some may be sad, but certainly the traumatic experiences very much shape the person that you become, and a lot of those experiences will have occurred before adolescence and through adolescence, but most of it is formed by the time you're 16, and really understanding what those parts are, and this could be, this is not related to me, but it could be your relationship with your parents, or with if you were bullied at school, which I can say was a yes to that early on. And what did that do to your subconscious? And a lot of it is about your survival mechanisms, so your flight and or fight responses, and those parts become very strong drivers to who you are as an adult. And I couldn't understand for a while, Phil, why I was, you mentioned it before, why I was trying to prove my self-worth in a work context, or why I needed to have this beautiful sounding story to tell and narrative. And a lot of it, as I've been able to really crack it open, comes from all these things that were way back when I was younger, and as I was growing and becoming an adult, that were all there as protective mechanisms, and they still are there. But what I'm working on, and I think what really is important for me, and maybe for others, and if they so choose, is to then understand, okay, if those things are there, are they becoming counterproductive to you being the best version of you? And are they detracting from you rather than adding to who you are? And that's been a really big step, to allow those things, to give them the acknowledgement and the respect, and I suppose thanks for what they've been able to do, and
Yeah.
For me, there was an element of being a perfectionist. There was an element of being very envious of other people that had, I didn't grow up with any real material um, abundance. So those things were really strong drivers for who I had become, but they're also not useful for where I'm going um, from here. They're still there, and I still think that they're and I pay them that respect. But if they manifest or come up and become a real front and center for me right now, they're counterproductive. So I would say, Phil, that's the kind of the that it just started with small steps to, okay, who really am I? Why do these self-doubt issues exist? And how can I gradually break it open? And I think that's been probably the most I can't remember the question, but that's been the most important progression of the journey in the last few years, particularly.
Feels to me they're something that we say here at Humans Connecting a lot. And this is a tough truth. And that is that loneliness is often the unintended consequence. Well, loneliness can be the unintended consequence of decisions that we've taken in our past to stay safe and small.
Yeah.
And those decisions can be capital D decisions, and those decisions can be ones that we really can't remember at all. Just like capital T trauma and small t trauma. And this, I feel, is really important. It is an absolute characteristic of my loneliness. Jono, in your experiences, I can hear it and see it. And, listener and viewer, and even if those decisions to stay safe and small have been showing up in a workplace and hustle to prove that you're worthy, even if, starting at a new school and trying to fit in, even if it was, moving different cities, different countries, whatever it is, and you're putting you're putting yourself into new places and spaces with new people, then, we make decisions to stay like we make decisions and to fit in. And loneliness can be an unintended consequence. We don't aim for it. That's why it's unintended. But here we are. Here we are in midlife, experiencing the thoughts and feelings that come with a loneliness experience, and maybe not even aware of it, that this is a loneliness experience, and this is an invitation to go within, to invest in ourselves, in the, using you, Jono, as the example there, as investment.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
But actually going, right, this is, I'm worthy of exploring this. I'm worthy of sitting with loneliness. And if that's too much of a trigger word, and I understand why it might be a trigger word, but if I accept that I'm a human who has connection needs, and when those connection needs are not met, then I will experience loneliness. So how can I make sure that my connection needs are met? And how do I know my connection needs? The trick is your connection needs are being whispered to you by your loneliness. Your loneliness's job is to tell you that you're not getting some kind of connection that is important to you. And when we're trying to be the biggest rat in the race, when we're trying to get the new big thing, we're trying to prove and hustle and do all of the things that, you and I, Jono, have spent so much of our lives trying to show that we are in our respective fields. Listener and viewer, you might be doing this, or you might have had been doing it and you realize that it's not working for you. Your loneliness is inviting us. Your connection needs are inviting you to come back and go, what do I need for me to be me?
Hmm.
It's terrifying. It's scary. They're the big questions. You want to, John, you did the same as what I did. Read the books, you listened to the podcast, this is kind of pre-podcast, but like, you did all of the things. There
That's,
was not a TED that you didn't hear the talk. Like it was
yeah.
all of the stuff and, gathering all the information, but the only thing that really works is the doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what is the thing that helps you become a connected human is the
Hmm.
doing.
Yeah. It's little steps.
So, John, I'm curious. Just before the break, you mentioned Lifeline,
Hmm.
and how did you get involved in volunteering at Lifeline?
Yeah. So I was looking for something to to get involved with. I knew that was I knew there was something telling me that that was missing. And I met a lady who was very generous in talking about in her experience with volunteering, and she's actually a recruitment consultant for not-for-profit groups, and so she had a really interesting insight into that whole world, and I'd met with a couple of groups, thinking that that may be a way forward in terms of work, or at least change in career, and it was clear that I if I was going to do something volunteering, it should be skilled volunteering in some capacity, um, different to what I'd done in the past. In Hong Kong, it was more not so much skilled volunteering, but just trying to help some people. And and so I had there was a thread to Lifeline. I had some lived experience that was relevant, that made it seem interesting. Although I had no idea, really all I knew about it was that it was, I really thought it was a suicide prevention hotline, which in many ways it is, but I didn't really have a deep understanding. I kind of thought, okay, I think I'm good at talking to people. This seems like a good idea. I should be able to just turn up and get on the phone. So that was the catalyst to, okay, look at it. There was it's quite an interviewing process that you go through to get started on their program, and I completely underestimated what was involved to do that. And it was when COVID was, it seems like a long time ago, but that was sort of in 2020 or 2021 when it was all a bit weird. So they decided to do their training on Skype. That was the first time they'd done virtual training. So that was kind of lucky in some respects, because I was able to do that um, while everything was a bit weird. And so yeah, the so there was a couple of things, Phil. I wanted to try and find something that was that I had some passion around, and that was certainly um, being with or talking to people when they're vulnerable or in pain. And so that was appealing to me because of um, the thread to lived experience. And then once I got there and started it, it was really completely different to what I thought, and and really opened my eyes to, I thought I knew I thought I knew a bit about life and the ups and downs and challenges, but really I knew nothing, compared to uh, really how it is for many, many people. And I also thought, okay, this is going to be easy. I'll just talk and um, have a chat with someone and ask them about how they're going. And it was, again, nothing like that. It was a um, very well designed formula for, as a crisis supporter, how you engage um, with a caller, a help seeker, they call it, and what that process is for for assisting that person in their moment of crisis. And nothing to do with me being having a chat at all, very much. And this is kind of interesting. The first point of when anyone calls, the first part of a call is finding a connection with that person, or connecting with them. And that's not a connection like, oh, we grew up not that far away from each other. And it's more of it's more of really just sitting with that person and listening and and helping them feel safe and comfortable in that space. And that really opened my eyes up, because I was often the person that would start the conversation, uh, uh, would ask questions and probably talk too much. And I was suddenly having to retrain to simply listen. And and it's and this is 3 or 4 years ago. It's blowing my mind, in the sense of the 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 difficulties that people, scenarios they find themselves in, the reality that many people get to a point where they feel it's the end of the road. Um, and in many cases, just people are crying out for someone that will just sit with them and listen, and and say to them simply, I'm here and I'm listening and I'm here for you. And people that just don't get that in any capacity in their life whatsoever, and from their society community, because often there are people that are pushed and ignored and pushed out into fringes that aren't listened to, and then they find themselves absolutely isolated. So, long answer to your question, how I got involved, Phil, but it was not what I thought it was going to be, but it's become something that I've gone through phases of, is this the right thing? Does it take more away than it gives? But from a because it is quite emotionally taxing. You
I
you you
bet.
you you bring an energy to it, and I feel as though you share that energy with people, and hopefully without using corny phrases, you sort of fill their cup up a little, and it's enough that they see some hope and they're able to get on with their day. And that can often be enough that they are that particularly if they call with the intention of suicide, or or feeling that their life is not worth living, that it just gives them a little bit of warmth and and a sense that someone else cares, that they push through that day and past that moment of crisis. But then there are other, and I'm going a little off track, but I think it's still interesting. They would get three and a half, 4,000 calls a day. I think on average it's 3,500 calls a day. This is in Australia. I would say 10% of those calls are where there's um, a significant risk of self-harm or suicide, maybe a little less. But there's a large proportion of the calls that are people that are lonely. And this is where you and I have a significant, well, we've always been kindred spirits, but I think this is where our connection. It really occurred to me that that issue is endemic, and it affects everyone. There's no certain type of person. It is just unbelievable that you would, the people that you talk to are, it's just like talking to your mum or your brother, or a guy down the street that's making coffee. It could be anyone, and it's really changed my perspective um, on I guess the fragility of us as humans, uh, and just yeah, how important it is for everyone to know that there's always someone there for them if they need it, and you're not on your own. And yeah, in my little journey, it's really boosted my gratitude, sense of empathy to all of us as humans. Yeah, so it was a bit of a random one, Phil, where I didn't really know where it would go. I didn't know if it was going to be the right thing, but at least for the moment, it's landed, and I'm still doing it. And I'm
It
meeting
feels to
some
me,
amazing people because of it.
well, it feels to me it's taken you where you've needed to go. It's taking you where you need to go.
Mm,
And the words that you use there, specifically the fragility of us all, that really hit me.
mm.
And it's such, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're all just doing our best, and for some people, help seekers, when they call, often I'll say to them, you're just doing your best, and they're like, yeah, I know, and then that's often what someone needs to hear.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, listener, viewer, you're doing your best.
Yeah.
Jono, how I've got two more questions, and I guess, like, quickly, how has your experience, your life experience, your insights from Lifeline,
Mm,
how has that, what have you brought to humans connecting from that?
yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I didn't see humans connecting existing in my life either, but it just happened,
Neither
and
did I.
yeah, yeah. And I must admit, when we first when we first talked about it, I thought, oh, will this actually fit in, or could I actually bring anything to the table? And increasingly, I had realized that this problem of loneliness is endemic. That for a lot of people, they do feel very much alone, and they don't really. There's no obvious. The only avenues for support are really these crisis kind of backstops, such as Lifeline or Beyond Blue, or um, um, suicide
Friends for
hotline. There's
good or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there's very few, excuse me, obvious points of call. So I could see that there's an absolute need um, for helping, giving people the opportunity to find the tools and support that they may need, and to actually understand, okay, well, what is connection and where do I go? So in terms of, you know, I suppose my involvement, or why I'm interested, I think it's a really important um, problem, that an issue for us as a society, that there does need to be support. There do need to be um, uh, people like you, feel that care enough to wear their heart on their sleeve, and tell other people about it, and to give a sense of connection, that we're in it together. And so, yeah, I think one of my main, I suppose one of the main things I bring is is I want to be there to support, feel what you're doing. My background in, I suppose, capital markets and finance, I would hope to help bring the right funding, or assist in connecting you to the right funding that can elevate the impact that you have. And I think that that's something that's growing in Australia, where um, there's a recognition that governments, well, A, they don't want to do get involved in a lot of the support and social ventures that create better outcomes for people, because it's not really the business they want to be in. So there's an element of governments aren't doing it. The problem is not going away; it's increasing for many reasons, and so there's a real need for groups that provide tools and support and programs and help people with just making those first tiny little steps. And so, yeah, if I can just help you connect to the funding that's needed to really put rocket boosters on this thing, I would be very happy, because I know that that's something that people need. And so, yeah, it really comes from a place, Phil, of now that I've gotten my hands dirty in the thick of the problem, talking to a lot of people that are desperately seeking help. I feel that it's something I should do, and I'm grateful that you're doing this, and sharing yourself and essentially giving your time and feeling this as a calling. You're not. Yeah, it's just so, I really admire it. And so, yeah, long answer to the question, Phil. That's kind of why I don't have much of a role other than to make sure that you don't run out of money anytime too soon. I want to try and make sure that doesn't, that you can keep the lights on and provide real support.
Yeah, thank you. And as a former public servant, I'm great. I'm great at the public serve. Pardon me. Oh God, hold on. I'm all choked up, Jono.
No worries. That was I.
Um, yeah, as a former public servant, I'm great at public servanting. And finance and investing are completely uh, uh, different concepts to me. So,
No, I don't think
using the
you
analogy.
haven't missed out on too much, Phil. I wouldn't be too worried about that.
But one of the things there, like you did mention, putting boosters on the rocket, and I'm glad that you're in the capsule as well. It really does bring joy. This has been an amazing conversation, Jono. There are so many other questions, so many things, but I will need to reluctantly wrap this up. But final question. Final question. What's one piece of advice that you would give to someone, that you can give to someone who's in the midst of a loneliness experience right now?
Yeah. Well, there's I guess two things. I know you said one, but the advice is
Break
in
the
two
rules,
parts.
Jono. Go crazy.
The advice is in two parts. One is, you're not alone. Just please know that you're not on your own, and be gentle on yourself as such. And then the second is that that there, there is a pathway to move forward and find the connection that you need, but don't overwhelm yourself that you can do it all in one go. It's not going to be, suddenly you'll join a club or you'll a walking group, but it's not going to land instantaneously. But just feel the permission to take a little step, and that might just be saying, um, how's your day going, to just something little that just moves you forward slightly. So, yeah, I think just not being overwhelmed with trying to fix things or change things or solve everything in one go, and you'll be okay.
Mm. I feel at this point, a reminder is loneliness doesn't mean you're broken. Loneliness means you're human. You're having a
Mm,
human experience. And because you're not broken, you don't need fixing.
yeah, absolutely.
So loneliness doesn't need fixing. Loneliness needs understanding.
Yeah.
And oh, Jono, we wouldn't need investment funding if we had the you butte razzle dazzle answer, the silver bullet. We would be, having a very different conversation right now. But, you know,
Mm,
the suckiness of it all is that,
mm,
understanding loneliness takes time
mm,
and takes intention, takes conscious intention and deliberate intentions to choose connection.
mm.
Bit by bit, poco a poco, there is, we will one day look around and go, oh my God, I'm getting the connection that I need and deserve. But it takes time.
Yeah,
Um,
well said.
but if we could just work on, having, coming up with the answer that people can do in a 30-second reel, and as they're scrolling on social media, let's do that. But until then, how about we go with the thing that really works? Yeah. Jono, I can't begin to say how much joy it brings me to have you in my life.
Thank you, Phil.
And knowing, I said this in the introduction, knowing that you have known me way back when,
Mm,
and you know me now,
mm. Warts and all,
warts and all. And you know the skeletons. You probably put some of the skeletons in the closet, or whatever, like
for
way back
sure.
when, way back
Yeah.
when. But what a gift it is that you give me, and I hope I give you, that you knew me, and then you know me now, and you accept me now as I am, as the gloriously messed up, well-intentioned human that I am. But what a joy it is to feel that from you.
Oh, that's nicely said, Phil. And I mean, I think you're a beautiful person, and I'm glad to be in your orbit.
Sounds like you're breaking up with me. You're a
Not
beautiful
at all.
person, but it's just not working out.
Well, not at all. No, I no, it's something special about knowing someone for some time where you also have both evolved and matured and yeah, that's quite special. There's not many people that you stay truly connected with over time. And we, as you said, we drifted away and then we came back, and you never know. But it's quite clear as you get older and more mature, the people that you really connect, gravitate towards, or want to be around.
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. The privilege, the mutual privilege of orbits.
Yeah,
I'm going to use your formal name now because I'm wrapping this up. Jonathon Lawless, thank you so much for spending some time with us on your Humans Connecting podcast.
a pleasure, Phil. Thanks for the opportunity.
How are you going? There's a lot that's sort of echoing in me right now. And as I shared in just a few moments ago, there was something in those words that Jono said about the fragility of that's within all of us humans. And that's really, well, shaken me because it is such a truth. And we can spend so much time, so much effort, so much energy trying to make it look like we're everything but fragile. we can try to spend time and energy convincing ourselves and convincing our others, but on the pretense of convincing others that we've got it all sorted, that we know exactly what we're doing, that we're doing things in the way that we're meant to do because that's how things are meant to be done. When really we're making it up. I'm making it up as I go along. And with that, there's the truth that we're fragile as we're doing it. And so if parts of Jono's story and parts of my story that I shared in that episode or previous episodes has had you reflecting on the facades, the masks that you're wearing and the facades that you've constructed as you've lived your life to make it that you fit in, to have it appear that you're okay, that you're doing, you're doing just fine. You're the epitome, you're the poster child of success. It's okay to be fragile. I know that it is scary. I know that it really does upset everything that you thought was how your life was meant to be. And here you are at that point where you don't know how you can take a step forward. Jono took a step. I've taken a step. Other people in the Humans Connecting team have taken a step. Everyone that you've heard on the Humans Connecting podcast so far has taken a step. And there's no way about it. There is no silver bullet. It is, as I said, it takes time and effort and intention to do it. But be kind on yourself, as Jono said, because behind the facade, behind the masks, behind the house, the cars, the job, the status symbols, all of the things, the yoga, behind the consuming voraciously vast amounts of information through self-help books, through whatever it is. You're a fragile human who is doing the best with what you've got. And you know about us here. You know that there are humans here who want you to be the connected human that you are, that you deserve to be. And the other thing that I said to Jono and like after we finished recording was that he in Jono's introduction, he said that, in his job, he looks at information and then sees patterns and then projects things into the future. Patterns. And then the word patterns came up again when he was talking with his GP in Hong Kong. And the doctor said, that he's seen these patterns before. And I summarized that in our conversation by saying, the doctor has seen this movie before and he knows how this ends. And in a similar way, I said to Jono afterwards that here at Humans Connecting, I can see the patterns. And while Jono's experience is uniquely his own, growing up in Yarrawonga and going to school and going to university and going through the LinkedIn summary of his life as he did. And you, in your circumstances, in your situation, growing up where you grew up and being educated where you were educated and your story and where you've been in life and how you're spending it, like all of that is uniquely yours as mine is uniquely mine. But there are patterns in that. There are patterns in that where our need for social connection has not been met. and we are feeling the effects of not having those needs met. There are patterns in that. And so, and I want to say really kind of, I don't want to say this flippantly, but your story is unique, just like everybody else's. And, circumstances are unique, but there are patterns. And so maybe it's time to allow others to see the patterns and reflect those back for you as you help you navigate your next steps. What did you get from the episode? There were so many nuggets. There were so many nuggets in there. That was just some of the things that I wanted to say. Beyond the, how Jono is turning his experience into real tangible support, both for us here at Humans Connecting and for you through us at Humans Connecting, but also at Lifeline. Anyway, what did you get from it? We'd love, of course, to hear what you got from that episode. So that's it for this episode. Be sure to check out our website, humansconnecting.org, for details about how we help you, your workplace, and communities thrive through loneliness and get the connection that we all need and deserve. And as we talked about in that episode, we are here at Humans Connecting to make a positive social impact. If you're a business and are looking for ways to support humans to feel more connected, and you want to have a positive social impact as well, check the link in the episode description to partner with us. Partnering with us can look like advertising on future episodes of the podcast, or we're completely open to ideas about how we can together make a positive social impact. Again, thank you so much for joining me and Jono for this episode. As always, it is a pleasure to serve, support, challenge, and inspire you on your way to becoming the connected human that you just need and deserve to be. We'll see you in the next episode.